Hey everybody, my name's Ellen Williams. I'm the events manager at Look. It's really wonderful to welcome you to tonight's event, EHCP Essentials, what makes a good EHCP and who can help. As a member of the Look team and someone with first-hand experience of visual impairment, I want to take a moment to highlight the unique understanding and personal connection that we bring to our work. Many of us at Look have our own personal stories with ties to visual impairment, which fuels our commitment to building a supportive community for families with children and young people with a visual impairment. At Look, we offer more than just events like this. Our mentoring program pairs young people with a mentor. We provide emotional and practical support for families. And we even manage a accessible holiday flat up in Scarborough where families can enjoy a relaxing getaway. Tonight, I'm thrilled to introduce our expert speakers, Sophie Hisa, Advocacy and Wellbeing Manager, and Lynn Pierce, Advocacy Officer at the Blackington Court Trust. Together, they bring a wealth of knowledge in supporting families through advocacy. Tonight marks the second session in our three-part series, and we're going to delve into what makes a good EHC plan and the roles of different professionals involved. We know that navigating the EHCP process can be really overwhelming with all the complicated requirements and details that you need to be aware of. So we're hoping tonight to break it down and equip you with the knowledge and understanding to confidently advocate for your child. Lynn and Sophie are going to walk us through tonight's presentation, and we're going to close the session with a Q&A session. So feel free to add your questions and comments in the chat as we go. The session is being recorded, and the recorded and additional resources will be available on our website afterwards, where you can also download tonight's presentation now so that you can follow along if you want to. So I'm just going to hand things over to Lynn and Sophie to get started and get us on the right slide.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So welcome to everybody. Some of you may have attended that last Monday's session. So I thought it might just be helpful to just do a quick recap. That was the first in the series, what is an EHCP and who is entitled to one? I think that sets the context moving on to our next session of what makes a good plan and who can help. So we've got some slides just as a quick refresher, because I think it sets the scene quite nicely for those who weren't at our previous workshop and to set the context for tonight's session. So it might be helpful to remind ourselves while we're here, what is an EHCP? And we've got the slide. It's a legal document that lays out a child or young person's special educational needs, things they'd like to achieve, which are the outcomes and the support they need to achieve these outcomes. And a plan, an EHCP is provided, remember, where your child's needs can't reasonably be met without additional specialist support under the graduated approach. So we did look at that last time and what that means. The plan is looking at your child's needs across education, health, and social care. And it is there to support your child from birth up to the age of 25. And importantly, the whole process of obtaining a plan focuses on your child's aspirations so they can achieve their own personal goals. Now, just a quick reminder, we talked about that. A plan may cease prior to 25 years of age if your child, young person, has attained a level 3 qualification, which is A-level equivalent, or it may be they've reached a stage whereby they've plateaued in their learning and achieved all the educational outcomes specified in their EHCP. And I think that's worth bearing in mind, because an EHCP is a working, living document, and those outcomes will change during the education and growth of your child. But it's about keeping that alive to keep those outcomes going as long as possible if they are still learning. We looked at this side. Next slide, thank you, Erin. We, oh sorry, and next slide again. I was stuck on one. Next slide, lovely. We did have this slide last time. Those resources are still available online. And you'll see we've got the content sections A to K. So we mentioned before the plan is split across these sections, and they should appear as separate sections in your final plan. They shouldn't be lumped together. They are very specific areas. They won't necessarily, though, appear in that alphabetical order in the plan. Different local authorities sometimes move things around, and they will do a B, E, F, and then revisit B, E, F under each need. So there's no rule that fits all. So we will drill down and look at these in more detail as we go on in the presentation. We've highlighted the sections in yellow that are very specific to education. Section A, we will be looking at tonight, which covers the views, interests, aspirations of you and your child. B, very specifically looks at the special educational needs. C and D is your health, social care, and we will be looking tonight again at outcomes that your child wants to achieve, the outcomes sought for him or her. We'll be concentrating again on section F, the special educational provision needed to meet your child's needs. We won't be focusing in on health or the social care provision, but we will be touching upon it perhaps in F if it's related. Section I is placement, and that's always the last thing that goes into a plan after draft and it's finalised when the local authority is ready, and that's to do with the placement that you wish your child to go to or the local authority has deemed is the appropriate provision. And then we have J, we mentioned last time briefly, and K about advice. That's all the documents that will go into forming the plan. That sits at the back. So throughout A to K, we'll touch on this tonight. There will be a golden thread, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail, but that's what will link your plan together. So can we go to the next slide, Erin? Thank you, Ellen. And so we're here tonight. Session 2 leads us on nicely why we're here, what makes a good EHC plan, and who can help. So some of you may be in the process at the moment of obtaining a new plan for your child. Others of you may be looking to update your child's plan as they are transitioning from different stages of education, whether that be from primary to secondary, on to further education, or it may be because of a new diagnosis or a change of special educational needs. Next slide, Ellen. Regardless of that, I mean, our aim tonight, wherever you are on your journey, we've set some session outcomes that we'd like to help you achieve to ensure your child does have a fit for purpose EHCP. We want to look at how and talk about how that can make it robust for you and how it might support you in the future if you're looking as well for an appropriate placement for that child. So there'll be a theme. So our particular session outcomes, we'd like you to understand what a good plan looks like, know what you can do as the parent to ensure the plan is reflecting your child's needs and aspirations, identify the appropriate professional reports that are required to inform your child's EHCP, and identify whether an outcome or statement of provision is specific and measurable, that it is going to make your plan robust and fit for purpose. So before we drill down into the detail, can we go next slide, Ellen? Let's just talk about the principles of how this plan should be put together. So the local authority actually holds the responsibility for this task, and they should be following the following principles. It must be drawn up in line with the Children and Families Act and the line of Special Educational Needs Code of Practice, which we talked about last time, and you can get signposting online to look at that in more detail. The important things are it should be clear to the point and be easy to use and read. It should be whoever picks that plan up, whether it be a professional, it should be somebody working with your child. They will all have different levels of knowledge and expertise, but everybody should be able to understand that plan. It should be person-centered, as I say, to include the aspirations of your child. Next slide. It should, as we've said, describe in detail your child's needs. We'll talk about that further. What they will need, which was provision, section F, but it should detail exact support. Things like how often, for what purpose, and by whom. We'll talk about the language enforceable by law that they are required to use. Language should be used to describe the required specialist support in section F, should be used in words like must and should. So we've highlighted those words. They are the legal enforceable words you need in your plan. Next slide. So, as I've said, the local authority is responsible for drafting the plan following those principles. And in doing so, they should be open and collaborative with you. And they should be involving your child right from the beginning, or you are advocating for your child. Their views, though, should be reflected. Next slide, Ellen. So this is an overview, because we'll go into more details, but drafting the plan, how the outcomes are to be achieved should be considered with reference to the evidence of education, health and social care needs. We sometimes get stuck on the education, but it is an education, health and social care plan. So outcomes should be detailed and SMART. And again, we'll drill down, but just for those not familiar with that term, SMART, when we use that term, it means specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound. So the plan should link services and different elements together, as we've said. Education, health and social care should be coordinated. And a review date must be detailed and coordinated within the reviews of other plans moving forward. There may be occasions when you might need an EHCP that's alternative or innovative. You know, if you have a child that is unable to access education, whether that be mainstream or specialist education, there may be times when your plan looks quite different, and you might be looking at an EOTIS package, as they called it, which stands for education other than at school. And sometimes people will look at personal budgets and they will think that links in, you can have a personal budget in addition to the provision your child is getting into a mainstream or specialist setting. That's something that we would have to cover on a different workshop, but it's normally very specific to an EOTIS package, or it may be, unless there's some social care provision that's deemed necessary for your particular child that's out of the ordinary. So that's a brief overarching look at what we're going to be now looking at in more detail.